Now we're going to talk about fertilization and implantation. So in short, our story starts from the ovulation until to day 9. So day 0 will be the ovulation of the oocyte. This progresses then to fertilization, the zygote creation, the first cleavage, that's the cell division into a 2-cell stage, a 4-cell stage, and an 8-cell uncompacted morula, and an 8-cell compacted morula, an early blastocyst, and a late blastocyst, and finally implantation of the blastocyst. So the first week of our development begins with fertilization of an egg by a sperm forming the first cell, the zygote. So it is called the zygote. So before it was called an oocyte, once it leaves the ovary, and then it's called a zygote. Cell division then leads to a ball of cells, which is then called the morula. Further cell division and then the formation of cavity in the ball cells forms then the blastocyst. As you can see, there is like a cavity. And it's moving along the fallopian tube into the uterus for implantation into the uterine wall. But let's start at day 0. So day 0, it is called an oocyte. Then it gets fertilized. It's then called a zygote, and a zygote is a 1-cell embryo. Within 24 hours after fertilization, the zygote initiates a rapid series of mitotic, so mitosis, cell divisions called cleavage. These divisions are not accompanied by cell growth. So they subdivide, as you can see, the large zygote into many smaller daughter cells. They're called blastomeres. Once cleavage begins, the cells double in number with each division. So the first cleavage division divides the zygote to produce 2 daughter cells. The second division, which is completed at about 40 hours after fertilization, produces 4 equal blastomeres. By 3 days, the embryo consists of 8 to 16 cells. The embryo at this stage is now called an 8-cell stage uncompacted morula. Only at the morula stage the embryo begins to weigh more than at the 1-cell stage. So now it's going to get heavier. So during the morula stage, the cells of embryos change from spherical, to a polygonal shape, as you can see. This phenomenon termed compaction. So compaction occurs when the zygote changes shape and align themselves with one another. This process is called compaction again. This 8-cell stage uncompacted morula turns into an 8-cell stage compacted morula. So the cells can now communicate with each other. They're so compact. it initiates the formation of the solid balls of cells. Morula means mulberry, and it looks like a mulberry, which is what this cell mass resembles. So again, a zygote, is going through cell division and then turns into a morula. So we are at day 4 now. It consists of 16 to 32 cells, and you can also see fluid begins to accumulate in the morula, causing the formation of cavity within its center. We have the morula here, and the cells of the morula are segregated into an inner cell mass and an outer cell mass, which will eventually become hollow to form a blastocyst. So this is the early embryonic stage. At day 5, the early blastocyst has about 128 cells. Then the cells in the inner cell mass of the blastocyst become aggregated at one pole of the blastocyst, and they will give rise to the germ layers that will form the tissues and organs of the embryo. The cells forming the outer layer of the blastocyst become flattened, and they will form the placenta. Hence, it's also, this is the early embryonic stage. The blastocyst then hatches, as you can see from this is called the zona pellucida, before it begins to undergo cell division and in going to invade the endometrium in the uterus. It is now called the late blastocyst. So recap again, by day 5, the early blastocyst, so that's about up to 128 cells, is already within the uterus, and the late blastocyst hatches from the surrounding zona pellucida, and it bores a hole into this zona pellucida, and it begins to directly interact with the maternal endometrium. It undergoes cell division again, resulting then in the late blastocyst stage, after which implantation occurs. So that's about day 6 to day 9. The levels of progesterone peak also at 6 to 8 days after ovulation, when a woman does not become pregnant. So progesterone levels can affect a woman's mood and body. So basically, after your ovulation, after 6 to 8 days later, you are more or less pregnant. Your hormones act as though you were pregnant. So congratulations, you've also made it up to that topic. So let's recap again. Day 0 is called an oocyte. It then gets fertilized, and it then is called a zygote. And a zygote is a one-cell embryo. Then within 24 hours after fertilization, the zygote initiates a rapid series of what kind of divisions? Mitotic cell divisions, so mitosis, and this is called cleavage. So the first division divides the zygote to produce how many daughter cells? 2. The second division which is complete about 40 hours after fertilization, produces 4 equal blastomeres. By day 3, the embryo consists of 8 to 16 cells. So now it is called a 8-cell uncompacted morula. Then compaction occurs. What happens then? Yes, it's called then the 8-cell compacted morula. What does morula mean? Mulberry. Very good. And so then by day 5, how it is called then? A blastocyst. Very good. What are the features of a blastocyst? You can already see that it's going to form the tissues and the organs of the embryo, and the outer layer will become the placenta. Very good. And it will hatch then and will undergo cell division again, and it will go into the uterus to do what? Yeah. Implantation occurs in the uterus. That's about day 6 to 9. And which levels will be very high? The progesterone levels. Very good. You've also finished this topic.